Well, good morning, good afternoon. This is Scott over at ReadySquirrel.com. Like and subscribe if you'd rather read than listen. Go over to ReadySquirrel.com and this article will be listed. Today we're going to cover a guide to choosing the best survival clothing. This video could have also been called How Not to Set Up a Webcam. Okay, a guide to choosing the best survival clothing. After water, clothing is the most crucial thing in your bug out bag. When trekking out of emergency on foot, suitable clothing can mean the difference between life and death. The kind of clothing you pick for survival is determined by your climate and the time of year, but the concept is the same regardless of the season. I've got a contents list here. If you want to jump directly to something, this is not a best list, the best Columbia, Patagonia, Outdoor Research, Walmart. It's not that. This is how you can look at the 3-layer system and the different materials to determine the best type of survival clothing for your bug out bag and for your situation. 5 goals when planning your survival clothing. Design a 3-layer system of clothing so you can add and remove items to match the weather. Include a layer or layers that wick moisture away from your body for cooling or for heating. Pick a layer that retains body heat with insulation. Choose a layer that blocks wind and rain. Minimize pack weight by choosing lightweight, high-efficiency gear. A lot of this stuff seems like common sense, but I don't think that it is, actually. We're actually going to talk about the different kinds of materials and when they're good and when they're not. I was always under the impression that things like natural down, like goose down, duck down were the best type of survival clothing, gave the best insulation, which they do, but they have drawbacks that, in my opinion, make them not a prime material for survival clothing. What does survival clothing protect you from? This is kind of common sense, but I thought I would go through the list just to get the creative juices flowing. Consider the 11 hazards that you need protection from during a natural catastrophe or emergency. Keep in mind that you may be without shelter for some time, so consider your clothing as a shelter for your body. 11 elements of protection, survival clothing. Depending on your situation, depending on your environment. I mean, you could be in a tropical environment, you could be in a 4-season environment, you could be bugging out in summer, you could be bugging out in the fall or in the winter. So you're going to have to wire your system in to meet those needs. So low temperatures, hot, dry, and humid environments. You need clothing that will protect you from your own sweat. It sounds crazy, but it's true. We'll talk about that more down below. You need protection from snow, sleet, and rain, direct driven wind, sun, which causes water loss from perspiration, overheating, sunburn from UV rays. Insects, biting or stinging insects, they can be poisonous, they can spread disease, and worst of all, they can hamper morale. I remember when I went on a hiking trip when I was in school with one of my buddies. We drove across the border to Canada when I lived further north, and we thought that having a cooler of beer prepared, and we had a canoe with us. We took our canoe out on the lake. Somebody drove up to the shore and stole all of our beer on a speedboat. And then that night, we were eaten alive by mosquitoes, and we had virtually no protection. So my experience with bugs has been a morale booster, or a morale reducer, I should say. There was another time I was on a Channel Island off of the North Carolina coast, and we went on a hike and went to see like some old historical buildings. It was like a fishing village that had been abandoned. And the guy who took us on the tour, he dropped us off and then was going to come back for us. And we were literally, I have never seen green flies so tenacious in my life. I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't experienced it. We literally had to get into the Gulf and we were dunking our heads in the water. They were landing on top of our heads and trying to bite us, so we were constantly swapping stuff. Bugs are a big issue. If you're in an environment where they're heavy, where you've got mosquitoes or biting flies. And then again, you got things like botflies and stuff like that, which is beyond my expertise. But you know your area and you know what bugs to watch out for. You want to protect your body from skin damage caused by extreme cold, sunburn, direct contact with rough surfaces like rocks, cactus, sharp grass, or coral. This is kind of an unusual one. I wasn't sure what to call this, but I'm just going to call this section foraging. You want to make sure you have the proper clothing you need to collect the food items, flora or fauna, that you're going to depend on in a survival situation. It might be something as simple as gathering berries, raspberries in a briar, and having protection from poison ivy or poison oak. You might need, gloves to protect your hands if you're digging clams. You might want to have a safety glove if you're filleting or skinning fish on a regular basis, so you don't cut yourself with a fillet knife. Overkill, possibly. You're going to have to decide. You want protection from poisonous plants, poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac. Not at this new place here in Florida, but when I lived up northeast, I probably got poison ivy twice, maybe 3 times a year. And I'm one of those guys, I'd wear gloves, I'd be sweating, then I'd wipe my forehead or my face, or I'd scratch my arm, I'd be wearing short sleeve shirts, and then I would end up transferring it that night. I'd have it all over me. Not something you want to deal with in a survival situation. 3 layers of survival clothing. A good bug out bag should contain 3 layers of clothing that allow you to add and remove gear. I just got to check and make sure that everything's on. I'm paranoid. I just recorded a video earlier and none of it recorded. So, 3 layers of survival clothing. A good bug out bag should contain 3 layers of clothing that allow you to add and remove gear depending on changes in your environment. 5 things that will affect how you choose survival clothing: the weather, your elevation, the climate. Weather and climate are a little bit different. You may be going from one climate to another where the weather is typically different than the initial location that you're at. Exertion level, how much you're sweating, how much bodily fluid you're excreting. That's a big deal when you're picking like your mid layers, because certain products get wet and they no longer insulate. They may also take forever to dry. We'll talk about that later. And then your metabolism. What I mean by that, that person that's always cold or always hot. I had an uncle growing up in Nebraska that would wear shorts in the middle of winter just because he had a really high metabolism. I would have froze to death, but he was always comfortable. Okay, so number 1 in the 3-layer system, the base layer or underwear layer, which is its primary job is for wicking moisture away from your body. The purpose of this inner layer is to wick perspiration away from your skin, which will keep you warm or cool depending on the temperature. This is the underwear layer that touches your skin. Again, this has to touch your skin to be effective. 3 elements of choosing a base layer. You're going to be looking at the material, you're going to be looking at the weight of the material, and you're going to be looking at the fit of material. So the material in your base layer, the type of fabric you pick is the most important of the 3 elements. Synthetic fabrics are hands down the best choice for the average person because they give superior performance in wicking and sweat dissipation, and they are also the least expensive, most durable, and the most readily available. Give you a little story on that. I hiked the Vermont leg of the Appalachian Trail. I think it was the year before last. And I started out with cotton socks, cotton shorts, tighty-whitey cotton underwear, cotton t-shirts. And add to that, there was a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? There wasn't a lot of water. Usually Vermont's known as Vermouth, but that year they actually weren't getting a lot of rain, so we were having a hard time finding water. I could not get enough water. I ended up having to buy electrolyte tabs, and still I was literally chugging water. I was drinking water constantly. And part of that, I think, was because of the clothes that I was wearing. Anyway, so back to what I was saying about the material. So I started the trail with cotton everything. So cotton, it gets wet, it chafes, it's heavy, it no longer insulates. And even though it was warm out, I was going up and down in elevation. So I'd get cold, and then I'd get super hot. It was just miserable. The first time we stopped in a town, for our first 0 day, they call it. That's a day where you don't hike. I went into Walmart and I bought everything polyester. I bought quick dry shorts. Actually I had to pay money for the socks. I had to get those at a hiking shop. But everything else was just inexpensive Walmart polyester clothes, and it made all the difference in the world. I'd end up in camp at night without as much chafing because I was getting that between, the thigh chafing and stuff. Miserable. So material on your base layer matters. The options for material: polyester, the most common synthetic fabric used to make outdoor base layers. A nylon is super tough. Polypropylene, rayon. There are synthetic blends. Merino wool. Merino wool will wick water away, but you're still going to feel some degree of dampness. Even when it's wet, it still insulates. Some materials do not do that. Silk, not great at wicking, but feels soft on the skin. It isn't durable, but it's expensive. So really the only plus of silk is it's comfortable. Another thing that you want to consider with your base layer is the weight of material. A heavier material in your base layer will provide more insulation, but remember the primary purpose for this base layer is wicking. So the base layer generally comes in 3 weights of material: lightweight, midweight, and heavyweight. And some of the designer type outdoor shops like Patagonia, Outdoor Research, REI, stuff like that, they have special names for these types of fabric, lightweight, midweight, and heavyweight, but they're still lightweight, midweight, and heavyweight. And especially when it comes to your base layers, you can usually, the quality stuff, they'll actually tell you the weight of the material and the fabric. Okay, so then the next thing, I know I said that material is the most important thing in your base layer, but fit is really important too. I'm one of those guys, I like baggy clothes, I like free-flowing cotton, I like the feel of that. When it comes to your base layer, you're going to be uncomfortable. So you're going to, if you got a little belly or whatever, you're going to be feeling that spandex suck it in, because that's what you need. You need fabric on skin contact to get the full wicking effect of whatever the base layer is. So the fit is, your base layer fits like a biking short, like spandex. Okay, the second layer, the mid layer, or your insulation layer, that's the layer for the most part that's going to retain your body heat. And it protects you from the cold somewhat. The shell is actually what protects you from wind, but that's the next step. So this is typically a polyester fleece jacket or a wool blended sweater. I say typically. There's a million ways to skin this cat when it comes to the 3 layers, especially for your tops. You can actually buy like 3-layer jackets from all of the main manufacturers. And you can actually find really quality stuff even at Walmart. So you don't have to spend a bunch of money. But when you get into the higher, when you check all the boxes, lightweight, highly efficient, highly crushable for packing in your bug out bag, the more of those things you get together, the more expensive the gear is going to be. So you're going to have to decide, what you want to do, how much money you want to spend on your bug out gear, or your bug out clothing rather. So 5 insulating materials for the mid layer. You've got merino wool. You want to start at midweight, which is 200 to 300 grams, up to a heavyweight, 300 to 420 grams. This merino wool is not the scratchy wool that our grandfathers had. It's not the old Irish fishing sweater. Really can't tell the difference between merino wool and cotton as far as the way it feels. Wool blends. You often see wool blends in hiking socks or lightweight shirts and sweaters. Polyester fleece comes in 3 weights: lightweight, midweight, and heavyweight. I love the feel of polyester fleece. It insulates when damp, but if it gets saturated, it's not going to give you an insulation factor. It breathes really well, but it doesn't protect you from wind. So that's why this is a middle layer. The next option for a mid-layer material is down insulated coats and jackets. Down is good in every way except for one. It's like superior in every way except for one, and in my opinion, it actually knocks natural out of the running for a mid-layer. So down is crushable for stowing. It's the most crushable. It's a high insulation factor in relation to the weight of the material. It loses the insulation factor when wet, and that's the big one. It not only loses the insulation factor when it's wet, but it takes forever to dry off. So there's The next option is a synthetic insulation or a synthetic down. It's not as crushable, so not as stowable as the natural down, but it retains insulation factor when it's wet. And I don't see, no matter how breathable your stuff is, if you're really humping, you're going to be sweating. If you're like me, you're going to be sweating like a hog, and your natural down is going to get wet, and you are going to lose insulation factor. So, synthetic insulation, it's usually inside a nylon or polyester shell that is wind and water resistant, and that kind of goes back to the 3-layer jacket you can get from places like Columbia. Your shell layer or your outer layer is your wind and rain protection. Basically armor from wind, rain, and snow. This is an essential layer because it keeps the other layers relatively dry. Your shell layer affects breathability. So even if you have a base layer that's breathable and a mid layer that's breathable, if you don't have a shell that's breathable, all that stuff is just going to stay inside and you're going to be a soupy sailor. Mobility is an issue, is a factor. It's something you want to look for. Lighter weight, high efficiency materials offer more mobility. The less expensive the gear is, not always the case, but the less expensive something is, if it has the properties you need, it actually is breathing, it actually is stopping wind and rain from getting inside, it's going to be probably a little bit more clunky if it's less expensive. Durability, synthetic materials are the best for durability. Your shell layer affects the rain protection and wind protection. So the two types of outer layer, waterproof and breathable shell. This is the kind of jacket you'd take on an expedition or a long trek. It keeps water out but still breathes, allowing perspiration to escape. So your goal with a 3-layer system, as much as possible, there's no perfect system, but you want to keep water from getting in and you want to let your perspiration out. That's the goal. So the waterproof breathable shells for extreme weather, high quality, and they're usually expensive. Water resistant and breathable shell. This is more like a jacket that'll keep light rain and wind at bay. But you wouldn't want to depend on this jacket to survive a squall or a snowstorm. So best use, again, light wind and rain, high exertion or activity level. How do I choose 3 layers for a survival situation? Choose each layer of clothing for the worst possible weather you will face. You can always remove clothing and stow it. You can't add clothing you don't have. I know, sounds like common sense. I guess it is. For a better idea of the types of clothing in each layer, look at the charts below. And then here I just have kind of a basic, just some quick things to say. Warm weather, 3-layer system. This isn't everything, but this is just in a nutshell. You're looking for clothing in a warm weather situation that will wick sweat away from your body for cooling action, and then you need protection from the sun. Cold weather, 3-layer system. Pick clothing that wicks moisture away from your body to keep you warm, and then also to contain your body heat with insulation and the blocks wind and rain. So it's at 3 layers. Wicking layer to get the water off your skin, the insulation layer to retain your body heat, and the outer shell to also allow perspiration to escape, but to protect you from wind and rain coming in or getting inside. I'm not going to go through these, but these are base layer examples, tops and bottoms, mid layer examples, tops and bottoms, outer layer examples, tops and bottoms. I think the most challenging thing to 3-layer is pants. There's a million ways to skin that cat. The stuff that insulates really well, things like snowmobile pants, stuff like that, don't really allow for flexibility. You're going to sweat a lot. I think the best place to look for inspiration for a 3-layer system for your legs is people who do endurance running, the long distance endurance running, people that run and hike during the winter. Because you can look at, there's some really lightweight tights you can wear, and different underwear and different short sleeve and long sleeve shirts that you can use in combination with a mid and an outer layer shell. So again, these are just examples, base layer, tops and bottoms, just to give you an idea. I'm not selling these. I don't have a vested interest in them, but it'll allow you to do some research and kind of get your eyes on something that is what each one of these items actually is. I know that's kind of redundant, but mid layer examples: tops, light, mid, heavyweight. Outer layer examples: top, light, light, mid, and heavyweight. 5 characteristics to look for in your survival clothing material. You want, and it's going to be impossible to get all of this stuff to perfection, but it's the goal. You want material that has breathability or wicking ability. You want a solid insulation factor. You want effects of moisture on. You want to know what the effects of moisture are on the insulation factor. You want something, an insulation or material that dries quickly. You want material compactness, crushability for ease of stowing, and you want to pay attention to how much the material actually weighs. If you're doing a bug out bag, we can go back to that 20% of your body weight. Your bug out bag shouldn't be any more than that. I think personally, if it's a serious hump, that's too heavy. So think like an ultralight hiker and go as lightweight as you can on all this stuff. That includes your clothes. 5 clothing materials. The material your clothes are made from really matters. It affects obvious things like thermal insulation, moisture transfer, volume, and pack weight. First one I wanted to talk about is cotton. I love cotton. I wear it a lot, but cotton kills in a survival situation. Not as much in a dry, hot environment, but more so in a really cold environment, or even an environment that gets chilled or windy. 6 reasons to avoid cotton clothing in a survival situation. Ever heard the saying cotton kills? There's a good reason for it. If you're outside trying to survive with just the clothes in your bug out bag, avoid cotton. Once wet, cotton does not insulate your body. Cotton absorbs moisture and doesn't move it away from your skin. If the ambient temperature is less than the core body temperature, cotton will have a cooling effect. So if the ambient temperature is less than 98 point whatever degrees your core temperature is, the cotton is actually going to remove heat from your body. So it not only doesn't insulate, it actually does the opposite. It actually removes heat. Cotton does not dry quickly, especially in a humid environment. Cotton does not work in wicking layers. It just sops up your sweat and holds it in place. It's not going to dissipate out through the mid and the shell layer. And most cotton garments are fairly bulky and heavy. And there's exceptions to that. I do like cotton, but it's just not a good material for survival. Fact 2, positive attributes for cotton. It doesn't burn easily like synthetic fibers, like if you're sitting around a fire, campfire, and those like the polyester shirts, like the fishing shirts and stuff like that. You get a spark or an ember on that, and you got a hole in your shirt. Again, and you can use cotton in a hot, dry climate. Pros and cons of merino wool clothing for survival. Wool is a natural material you can use for your survival clothing, especially for socks and watch caps. It isn't the best choice for wicking moisture. Synthetics actually do a better job. So, pros of merino wool: a great insulator. It's water resistant to an extent. It insulates you when wet. That's a major plus. It dries quickly. It has antibacterial qualities, and it's somewhat odor resistant. Cons of merino wool: wool will soak up 36% of its weight in water. So think about that. If an item 36% of its weight in water. So add 36% of the weight of an item on top of that item, because you're probably going to sweat that much, especially if you're using this as a base or a mid layer. Wool is expensive, another con, and again, synthetic materials do a better job of wicking moisture. Third material to consider, synthetic materials. They're excellent for survival clothing: nylon and polyester, and then all different kinds of blends in between. Nylon and polyester, both excellent materials for a survival situation. Both materials are manufactured to meet specific needs and are often impregnated with chemicals that make them waterproof while maintaining breathability and wicking characteristics. They're also used to wrap materials like down, fleece, or synthetic insulators to make warm jackets. So that's kind of back to those Columbia, Patagonia, REI outdoor research jackets, where They're the 3 layers: outer shell, mid, and inner. And then sometimes you'll have the mid layer and the outer layer as 1 layer. So it's technically 3 layers, but it actually will look like 3. You know, it'll have the zip out liner. It'll actually look like 2, but it's 3, was my point. Pros of synthetic material: nylon and polyester both allow moisture to move away from the skin and out through your outer layers. They're both lightweight and stowable, crushable. Not as stowable and crushable as natural down, but I think that their positive characteristics make it worth losing some stowability. Most high-end brands like REI, Columbia, Patagonia use polyester and nylon in their foul weather gear. That just goes to show you that they must work. I mean, they're outfitting mountain climbers and hikers and, you know, professional climbers and professional outdoorsmen. So both take breathable laminates that allow for waterproofing while maintaining breathability. So it keeps the rain from getting in and lets the moisture, perspiration out. Polyester is one of the most durable materials. Polyester is a good choice for hot weather because it wicks moisture away from your body. Polyester works well as an undergarment material because it breathes, has wicking characteristics, and does not chafe. I'm a big fan of, I wear polyester, long sleeve polyester fishing shirts, and I wear, not a Krav Maga, but a tube, a buff. I wear a polyester buff when I'm out fishing, and wear a boonie hat on top of that, and that keeps you fairly comfortable in a very hot, sunny environment. So polyester is great. It's great for the cold, and it's great for the hot. I like it all the way around. Cons of synthetic material. This brings me back to hiking the AT. One of the things that I didn't know. Wow, will you stink. Polyester and nylon are prime material for bacterial growth. So if you're sweating a lot, and I sweat profusely, you're going to stink. The positive side of that is if you have access to water, you can literally take your shirt off, dunk it in the water, squeegee it out. 10, 15 minutes later, the shirt's going to be dry. So if you can't do that with a cotton shirt. So it's going to take hours for a cotton shirt to dry, depending on the environment. I mean, if you're in the desert of Egypt or something, it's probably going to dry quicker. But fleece, a form of polyester, another con of synthetic material. Fleece, a form of polyester, does not insulate when soaked, but it dries out quickly. Fleece also requires a shell layer because it provides no protection for wind or rain. So fleece does not insulate when it's totally saturated, but if it's damp, it will still insulate. But again, fleece requires a shell layer. So wind and rain will go right through fleece, so it's got to be a mid layer. Natural down is an insulator, big, fluffy, and crushable for stowage. I actually have a Patagonia jacket here. It's really warm, really hot, and but it gets pilling when it gets wet. So natural down is I don't know. Natural down, it's out there that natural down is an option for your mid layer. I wouldn't use it. It gets wet. It stops insulating. It takes forever to dry. So pros of down insulator: higher warmth ratio than synthetic down, extremely compressible for storing in your bug out bag. It's durable if you take care of it, and it wicks moisture away from your body. Cons of down insulator: loses ability when wet, or loses insulating ability when wet. Rain, snow, humidity, and sweat affect the thermal efficiency. Does not repel moisture. Slow to dry once wet. It's extremely expensive if you get the higher grade, like insulation rates like 550 plus. And it's not good for high exertion activities, and that goes back to you may be outside in 0 degree weather, but you may be chopping wood and you're just dripping sweat. That would be so natural down would be not be good for that situation. Tip: natural down fill power ratings range from 300 to 900. Fill power is the amount of down in cubic inches 1 ounce of plumage fills. Natural down is actually not feathers. I thought it was before I did this article. It's actually that fuzzy layer that's underneath the feathers, that the real fine feathers, I guess you'd call it. That's what plumage is. The high insulation rate for natural down starts at 550. Synthetic insulation down. This is the most common insulation option when it comes to down insulation. It's readily available and it's the least expensive. There's all different kinds of mixes you can get here. You can get wool mixed with synthetic insulation. The synthetic insulation can be used more like a down, or it can be more like a fleece. There's all different kinds of ways you see it in different kind of coats. You'll just have to look at the 3 layers and make sure that you're keeping water out and letting perspiration. You're keeping water out and you're letting perspiration out. You're doing both of those things. Pros of synthetic insulation: extremely water resistant, less expensive than natural down. It insulates when wet, and it's hypoallergenic. Some people are actually allergic to plumage. So, cons of synthetic insulation: heavier and less crushable than natural down, so it takes up more space in your pack. Less warmth for its weight than natural down. Less durable than natural down, which actually surprised me. I thought that it would be more durable, but it's not. But if you think about it, like fleece jackets and stuff, they get pilling quite easily. So 7 clothing items for survival. 13 traits of a good pair of survival pants. The high-tech clothing and materials come from those who play hard under brutal conditions. Hiking, climbing, and other outdoor pastimes provide excellent pants for survival conditions. Avoid wearing jeans as survival clothing because they're made from cotton, don't dry well, and cause chafing if hiking long distances. So 13 traits you need in survival pants. Okay, so this is a pipe dream. Like, you're not going to get all 13 of these, but this will give you an idea of what to look for when you're choosing your pants. Quick drying. I think this is not an option. Polyester, nylon, especially important in cold weather. Nice to have if you're being rained on and make it back to camp. Also good if you're working in a marine environment such as fishing from a kayak or foraging for mussels in a marshy area. You want the material of your pants to be self-wicking, polyester and nylon. Even if you don't get wet, you'll sweat. If it's cold outside, you need to move the moisture away from your skin so you don't get hypothermia. Insulated. You can opt for a base layer like wool or synthetic long johns instead of insulated pants. I don't like the idea necessarily of getting insulated pants, but I think it depends on how cold your environment's going to be. The only thing I don't like about that is if your pants are insulated, like you have your pants on and you can't separate the 2 layers. You've got a shell layer and then you've got an insulation layer on the inside. So if you're getting too hot, you can't take one off. You're basically stuck wearing the insulated pants. You want the pants to be durable. Nylon is the toughest synthetic. It's synthetic. It's self-wicking and quick drying. You want your stuff to be ultralight. Lightweight pants may be a good choice if you're in a warmer environment. Loose fitting. Make sure that your pants are large enough to wear a base layer of long johns for comfortability. You want protection from chafing. You want pockets for storage. You want a convertible option if you're in an area where that's an option. I mean, if it's a hot climate, you may want the option of zipping your legs off and switching over to shorts. You want a UPF rating or sun protection, especially important the closer you get to the equator or if you're surviving in a desert area. I was actually out kayaking the other day and I forgot to put sunscreen on, and the tops of my knees just got fried. So that would have been a good time for me to be wearing some thin pants. You'd like it, if possible, it would be nice to have pants with an antimicrobial lining to keep things a little fresher. Another option would be naturally antimicrobial merino wool undergarments. Bar tacking is just basically heavy double stitching. You're going to see those in more expensive pants, but they're going to last longer. So don't be penny wise, pound foolish. And reinforced knees. Underwear as survival gear. The word is in. Cotton tighty-whitey underwear are out. For a survival situation, you want synthetic polyester, a polyester blend, or merino wool. The warmer the environment, the lighter the garment should be, and vice versa. So you want to look at the weight of the base layer. Choose lightweight, middleweight, or heavyweight fabric to meet your insulation needs. You want wicking material in your underwear. You want it to fit like a glove, make direct skin contact for maximum wicking, and you want it to be made from synthetic or merino wool. Synthetic materials and merino wool. Socks is a survival clothing. When I was on hiking the AT, I started out with cotton socks, and if you've never hiked with good quality socks, definitely worth spending a little extra money in that area. I'm not touching on boots or shoes in this article. I think that's another article. There's just too much involved in that. It's really hard to get at quality control these days. What's my point? Your feet are super important. If you're going to splurge on something, I think socks are definitely up there on my list of things to splurge on. Socks are super important in a survival situation because your feet may be your only transportation mode out of a dangerous environment. A blister on your foot can take you out of action and slow you down. Avoid this by taking care of your feet with good socks. 8 characteristics of a good pair of survival socks. They stop blisters. They keep feet cool in warm weather. They keep feet warm in cold weather. They provide wicking action. They insulate when wet. They provide cushioning. They don't slip down your calf and into your shoe. They don't bunch up in your shoe or boot. And they're antimicrobial. Tip, choose the best weight of sock for your situation. Make sure they fit comfortably inside the shoes or boots you're using for bug out. You get some really big, thick socks, and that's not what you normally wear with your hiking shoes. You may find when you need them that your shoes are compressed and too tight when they go on your feet. As an example of a fine sock company, and I'm going to rattle the cage on this one because I love these things, Darn Tough socks are an excellent choice for your survival needs. I wore Darn Tough socks when I hiked the Vermont leg of the Appalachian Trail, and they were spot on when it came to comfort and reliability. Darn Tough might make the best hiking sock on the planet, in my opinion. Characteristics of Darn Tough socks. They have the 9 characteristics above. They have a lifetime warranty, no questions asked. They're made in the United States. They're worn by thru hikers on the Appalachian Trail. It's probably the most important. I want to say successful. That's not the word. They're the most chosen brand for thru hikers. Their Darn Toughs are also worn by American soldiers in combat. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, these bad boys are expensive. Three-layer glove system. I wanted to be more proactive on this, but I don't really have a good 3-layer glove system. It's something I need to work on. To survive in cold weather, you will need a 3-layer glove system. Keeping hands warm and dry is a challenge, even for professional outdoorsmen. Gear testing is a necessity. So that goes for all this gear. You have to actually use it because you won't really know what fits you until you've tried this stuff, and you won't know if it works or not. Base layer for your hands that wicks moisture away from your hands. An insulating layer. It's the same as with your body. An insulating layer, a mid layer that retains body heat, and a shell layer, waterproof and windproof. Layering your glove system will allow for maximum flexibility when it comes to changing weather conditions and physical exertion. Your glove or mitten system should allow you to keep your hands warm and dry again. Layer 1, your base layer glove should have an excellent wicking and breathability. Synthetic glove liner is a solid option, as are the more expensive Merino Wool liners. Layer 2, insulated glove or mittens, often made from synthetic fleece. This layer retains body heat. And then layer 3 is your shell. The outer layer is wind and waterproof but breathable. Under arduous conditions, it can be challenging to keep perspiration from building up inside your glove. Test your gear before you depend on it. I think the hands are another area that are super challenging. It's really, really hard to keep dexterity in your fingers if you're doing tasks, to get moisture away from your hands, to keep your hands dry, and to keep your hands warm. It's very challenging to do. It's something that you have to wire in. And what I mean by that is you've got to test it. There's a lot of good information out there on hiking websites, and also some good stuff on Reddit. Hats for surviving the elements. Again, this isn't, hey, buy this hat. This is just this hat here. That's the hat that I wear most often. It's probably not the best hat because it's not the quickest drying material, but it's actually served me well. Summer survival hats. A summer survival hat should protect your head and neck from sun, wind, and rain, and provide wicking for evaporative cooling. A boonie style hat is one of the best options. And these things come in all shapes and sizes. Columbia, REI, they have some boonie style hats that actually are wider brim. This is kind of like a military style boonie. But you can get them, they're like full wicking, and they give you actually more shade. They're crushable, more crushable even than this one. So a boonie type hat, shop for that. Warm weather survival hat, 8 characteristics, quick drying synthetic material. You want a drawstring to keep it on your head. That sounds cheesy, like, oh, that's not cool, I'm not going to wear a drawstring. Well, if you've got 20, 30 mile an hour winds and you want to keep your hat, you need a drawstring. You want a wide brim for sun protection. You want UPF sun protection in the cloth if it's really thin. Mesh band or vented grommets to allow the moisture to escape and kind of have a cooling factor on your head. Again, you want it to be lightweight. You want it to be crushable so you can stow it. And number 8, you want it to be head net compatible, depending on where you're going. Excuse me. I would suggest having a mosquito net. It's one that you can put down over the hat, and then it cinches up around your neck to keep the mosquitoes out of your face. Winter survival hat, 2-layer hat system. You want a base layer and you want an outer insulating hat. I have to be honest here, I've never worn a base layer. I always have had a trapper style hat in the winter. But I'm going to give you these options because I think in a survival situation, you can't go into the house. You don't go out and shovel snow or go for a hike and then come home and sit by a fire. You could be out in the elements long term, and once you get cold, it's going to be hard to get warm. So winter survival 2-layer hat system. 1 base layer. Choose a thin base layer made from wicking material like polyester or nylon. Here are some examples of solid base layer hats. I have not tested these, but I recognize these, and people are talking about them on Reddit, so I know they're quality items. Smart Wool Merino Sport Beanie, a 3M Thinsulate Beanie, Under Armour Beanie, Outdoor Research WinPro. Basically, you want a really thin beanie, almost it's elastic, that's made from a thin synthetic material. That's what you want, and that's going to go under your main hat, your main insulating hat. Outer insulating hat should provide maximum insulation. Wicking protection from wind, snow, and sleet. Should be made from material that will dry quickly and wick moisture away from your head. Good examples, trapper hat, aviator hat, Ushanka hat, and a chulo hat. The trapper hat is exactly what you think it is. It's the fur hat, and you can get them with synthetic fur, and even with it, it looks like leather, but it's not. They go over your head. Then they have ear flaps, and you can tie it, and you can fold it down, fold the sides in, and basically, make it so your whole head and face are protected. A chulo hat, that's what you would see like in the Andes. You see a herder out there with his llamas or alpacas, and they're wearing those wool hats with the kind of goes down like a stocking cap, and then it has the flaps that come down the sides. That's a chulo hat, so that's an option too. Sunglasses for protection and comfort. Considering putting a pair of sunglasses in your bug-out bag or keep them with you as part of your everyday carry. Choose polarized lenses that offer UV protection from the sun and give a cleaner, clearer picture. The older I get, the less I just don't like going without sunglasses. So I love sunglasses. 5 reasons to have sunglasses in a bug-out bag. Sunglasses reduce sun glare coming off of snow and ice. They reduce eye strain by reducing the amount of sunlight that hits your eyes. You want to make sure that your sunglasses are UV protectant, because what will happen if you don't have UV protection, but you have like some of the cheap gas station sunglasses, they'll let the UV rays in. Your pupils are dilated because there's not as much light, but the UV rays will penetrate, and that's the stuff that causes glaucoma and cataracts and stuff like that. So you want to avoid that. You want sunglasses with UV protection. Wind and polarized lenses actually allow you to see things more clearly. Tip: if you wear lenses or prescription glasses, give thought to a pair of backup glasses in your bug-out bag. Buffs and gaiters. I have a bunch of buffs. I wanted this picture to be a polyester buff that I wear when I'm fishing. I have 3 of them. I couldn't find any of them. I think they're in the laundry. So I'm wearing, this is a winter gaiter here, winter face gaiter. These come in all different materials. This one's a polyester blend. There's so many uses for these inexpensive cloth tubes. Having one in your bug out kit is a no-brainer. Buffs are extremely versatile and useful in a survival situation, as they improve the ability of your 2-layer hat system and your coat layers to protect you. 8 uses for a summer buff in a survival situation: worn as a face mask, a hoodie, a beanie, a neckerchief, a headband, a balaclava. Provide sun protection and whisk moisture away from your face. So what I like about winter or summer buffs is it really allows you, we're talking about having that 3-layer system to have the ability to add and remove clothing. Well, I see the buff as really awesome for just the neck and the head, because you can wear it as a headband to keep your sweat out of your eyes. You can wear it as like a full hat and tie a knot in it, almost like a little beanie. You can pull it up around your face, up over your nose. There's just so many things that you can do with it. They're super, super lightweight. They're super inexpensive. So I'm a huge fan of buffs and gaiters. Winter balaclava, neck gaiter, survival clothing. 8 reasons to have a gaiter for survival. Protect neck, face, and ears from cold winds. Backup redundancy for your headgear. Allows for flexibility in how you stay warm. Smaller and more lightweight than a scarf. You can wear it around your neck. You can wear it around your neck, face, and ears, kind of stuff we've already covered. You can wear it as a bandana to keep sweat out of your eyes, and you can wear it on your head as a base layer hat. When you're purchasing your survival clothing, just a tip, I suggest avoiding the tactical look to minimize sticking out and looking like a threat. Try to avoid walking into a town for supplies with full battle rattle gear. To me, that's kind of like, I don't know, you're kind of signaling someone that you're the maybe the highest threat in the area. So you're kind of making yourself a target when you wear stuff that's too tactical. I know, I love tactical gear. It looks cool, and we all want it. So take that with a grain of salt. Do what you want with it, but I just had to get it out there. All right, guys, that's the end of the article. This is Scott, and I would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. I need some love. That's the end of a guide to choosing the best survival clothing. You can also check us out at readysquirrel.com. Take care of you and yours, and I will see you next time. Take care, guys.